guys, if you're new here, I'm Jen. I'm the owner of Stone Orchard Jewelry, and I am still in the closet. I just moved to Rome, Italy from New Mexico, and we don't have any furniture, and we won't have any furniture for a total of 4 months. And the house is empty, so anywhere else I sit but this closet, all you hear is my echo. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing this video from my closet in Rome, Italy. It's fine. I got videos if you want to see them, where I kind of talk about the move and all that fun stuff. Anyways, what I'm going to talk about today is how I made over $140,000 in sales in my handmade jewelry business in my first year. And the majority of those sales in year one were from Etsy, which is very cool. Initially, I had a goal of $50,000 in sales, and I blew that way out of the water. So what I want to do is share with you guys the real story behind how I did that. To me, it all started with a goal, and that was very personal to me. Actually, it all started with a hobby, and like many small business owners right now, it started with a COVID hobby. So in 2020, my husband and I were, we were biking, we were hiking, we were doing everything that everybody else was doing, but we were still looking for things to do. So my husband had asked me to start a hobby with him, and he didn't quite know what he wanted to do. And I had been buying a certain type of jewelry. It's called electroform jewelry. And I just really liked the earthy, organic, kind of bumpy, rustic feel to this jewelry, and I kept buying it on Etsy from other small makers, and I was spending a bunch of money on it. And I was like, well, why don't I just teach myself jewelry? And I asked my husband, hey, do you want to learn to make jewelry with me? And he wasn't thrilled about the idea, but at that point, right, he's just open to anything. So he thought I was going to be doing kind of what I'm doing right now, which is beading jewelry, which, by the way, he also does with me now, and he loves it. He loves beading jewelry. He loves buying beads. He loves coming up with color schemes. So it's really funny, the thing that he thought I was going to start with for jewelry making, he loves now that I'm actually doing that. Anyways, electroforming involves acids, like acids, and electricity, and you put a conductive paint around a gemstone of a ring, you put it into the acid, you add the electricity. Through science and magic, metal grows on top of it. I made a bunch of electroforming videos if you guys want to check out and see how I make that kind of jewelry. Again, it was just the jewelry that I really, really loved. It, to me, is a very funny starting point for jewelry. And like, I'm still surprised by myself that I went out and I did all this research online, how to make electroform jewelry, and I bought all the supplies, and it was a lot of trial and error. And at that point, I was working full time, and I was a logistics war planner in Europe, which is obviously a very serious job. That was before Russia invaded Ukraine, but it was still very serious then. And I just found that I loved making jewelry. I think honestly, I also found my inner hippie. And so I have been working like basically for the government my whole life. I've been working since I was 14 and full time since I was in college. So I've just been working a long time. I have been in the military. I have worked management analyst jobs. I've worked all these positions. I've always worked overtime. I didn't even know I was a workaholic. I guess I didn't have like the self-awareness to know that's what I was. So I want to say like I was burnt out because of, who I worked for, but that's not true. I was burnt out because of me, because I am a workaholic. And as I was doing this hobby, I decided to just go ahead and start an Etsy shop, because I was like, what am I going to do? Make all this jewelry and then I wear all this jewelry? That seems silly. I'll just have this hobby where I sell things on Etsy while living in Germany, while having my full-time job. So that's what I did. And it took off right away, because in 2020, everybody and their mother was buying online. So that just really surprised me. That forced me to make things very quickly, and it forced me to become better pretty quickly because I was making so much. And then I realized it could be a real job. And I realized I am a workaholic. I am somebody who has hyperfixation, and so I really get hyper focused on doing whatever my task is, especially if it's a task that I enjoy and I find fascinating and interesting and is challenging. I get really hooked on it. So I realized I'm working overtime all the time. I am focusing on work for other people. I definitely get exploited every job I've ever had because of my work ethic. Why don't I work for myself? Like, why don't I just start a full business on my own, but my full mental drive into my own business? So that was the start of my business. But we actually ended up moving back to the United States. We moved from Germany to Albuquerque, New Mexico in 2021. And that's when I started my business officially. You know, I got my LLC, which was so important. If you guys want to know what are the basics that I did when I started my business, put it in the comments, because there's so many things to talk about. Like right away, I did my research on like what is important when you start a business. And right away, I got an LLC, I got a credit card, I got my tax rep. So I did all these things in the beginning to make sure I was secure for my business. Again, if you want me to go into details about it, put it in the link. Okay, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about how I made 150K. I will say I started in October 2021 officially. I was now not working any other job. I was working full-time for myself. I just plunged right into it. I was like, that's the only way it's going to work. If I just jump right into the deep end, I was convinced. So in October 2021, I started my business, and by December 2021, I had like 5 scam businesses in China and probably other countries that had stolen my images and were selling my work. And if you want to know how I dealt with those scammers, I also figured that out. I tried multiple methods. I'll tell you what worked. I'll tell you what didn't work. I tell you what I do now. I was able to stop the scammers, but like not until about 6 months later, after they had stolen my images over Christmas time and Mother's Day the next May, I finally figured out how to stop these guys. But oddly, the fact that I got scammed that my images got stolen right away was the first indicator that I was doing something good, that I was doing something that people wanted, and that was something that was desirable enough to be stolen, right? For competitors to just try to steal what I was doing. So that was oddly validating. Yeah. So I think there's 3 main reasons why I was so successful in my first year on Etsy. And I was profitable, by the way. If you want to know what my profit was, put it in the comments and I'll throw it in the next video. Okay, number 1 is that I sold a style of jewelry that is universally loved and giftable, like super giftable, and it's birthstone jewelry. So I use this electroforming method to make rings in particular, but I also made birthstone necklaces, birthstone rings, birthstone bracelets. And that is my number 1, like 90% of what I sold was birthstone jewelry. So people love customizable and personalized jewelry. It is a very, very competitive field. There is so much birthstone jewelry out there. So my electroform jewelry looks very different. I use raw, rough, uncut gemstones. So it has a really like earthy, kind of wild and natural feel. Often people who don't wear jewelry like to wear my jewelry, especially my rings, because it feels like you're wearing nothing at all, and yet is super captivating and is like a conversation starter anywhere you go. I guess 1 would be I did something that was highly giftable, and 2 would be that it was customizable, and 3 would be that it was unique. It was different than what everybody else was doing. It was my spin on a very popular jewelry style, which is birthstone jewelry. That's the number 1 thing I did. Number 2 and number 3 thing I did, I guess. So those were the top 3 things I did that just made my sales go wild in that first year. I got a lot of reviews over Christmas time, and Mother's Day were like 70% of my sales. It was when I made all my money was over those 2 holidays, and I embraced the made to order business model. So I had been a management analyst working for the Air Force. I had taught green belt training, and I taught a lot of concepts that have to do with made to order. And to order is a big deal. I was a management analyst for, in my past life at one point. I had lots of jobs, guys. I was a management analyst working for the Air Force, and I taught green belt training. And I used a lot of the principles from green belt training and applied them to my own business. So one of the things I did is I didn't just make jewelry and then try to sell it. I made prototypes of designs. So I knew that birthstone jewelry is popular because I made rings first and they sold right away. So of course then I made necklaces, I made earrings, and I made bracelets. I think anklets would be cool too, but I never did that. But like, absolutely. So I made prototypes, and then I would go to markets and I would sell my prototypes. So that's how I would sell those. And then online, I just had made to order options. So the majority of my money was put into raw supplies. So I bought metals, gemstones, and like my solutions, my acids that I needed. And I had all the raw supplies in my little home studio. And then as people made orders, I would just go and create the orders using the supplies I had in house. I will say I put too quick of a timeline on. Like, I got more sales than I really thought I would. And I had this really quick turnaround time. And if you're the only person in your business, I would definitely recommend just give yourself a good lead time. During the holidays, I would have up to 8 weeks. Like, this is how long it would take me to make your ring because I had so many orders. And you just set it out there. You be very clear how long it's going to take you to make a ring. You try to give deadlines, or you do give deadlines of when people should order for the holidays. And it makes a huge, huge difference. So that would be my bonus tip for you guys if you're thinking of starting your own business, is don't just make jewelry and then try to put it online. Do made to order. People love customizing. So I would buy wire, and all my wire would be the same type of wire. For me, it was half round wire, and it would be the same gauge, the same width, which I think I used 10 gauge. And so I would buy it in rose gold, sterling silver, and yellow gold filled. I even had actually solid yellow gold and solid rose gold options. And so when people bought my jewelry online, they can choose what type of metal they wanted. And then I would have in my little home studio just wire, raw wire, for rings in those different kind of wires. But a lot of people will use different type of wires for rings, right? They'll have flat wire, or they'll have textured wire. You want to focus on having just supplies ready to go to make your jewelry, but you also want to limit what your supplies are so you're not overwhelming yourself and you're not putting too much money into your supplies. You don't want to lock your money up in all of your supplies. You certainly don't want to lock your money up in inventory of jewelry that you've already made. Okay, I think I'm kind of going long on this video. If you guys want to hear more, or if you have any questions, let me know and I could go in details. I could talk about the made to order piece forever. I have a couple shorts about it too. So I hope this helps, and I hope you find something that makes your soul happy today. Bye guys.